Hello YouTubers, how are you today? I hope this commentary finds you in good health and in good spirits. This brief commentary is intended to show how people like Jeff and Matt from the Atheist experience lack credibility. I'm going to show you an example here of how they build straw men to attack. And I'll also show you how they just engage in out-and-out deception. Let's now listen to an exchange they had with a caller.
Well, I actually go to church here in Austin, and there's been a bit of a discussion about your show lately at my church.
A little later, he makes the following suggestion.
Sir, my church believes heaven and hell are real places.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
And guess which one you're going to if you keep this up.
So how does Jeff respond?
See, here we go. Why do you want to be our enemy? I mean, why do you on purpose choose to think bad things about us?
As soon as he says this, I begin to scratch my head and say to myself, wait a minute. Wasn't Jeff sitting there just a moment ago when his partner, Matt, was involved in this exchange?
When you were at church, if there was a show like your show, what would you have thought about it, do you think?
Concerned about the effect that it might be having on people. I mean, my parents think that I'm working for Satan, leading people to hell. So, you know, I can kind of use their assessment as a barometer. And I would have been concerned for the souls of the individuals on the show, you know, for fear that they would be lost to hell as well.
So Matt fully understood where the caller was coming from and said that if he were in his shoes, he too would have had the same concerns. So having a concern for someone's soul automatically makes them the enemy? That would be like saying if we saw a blind man heading for the edge of a cliff and warned him about it, we would have made him the enemy by doing so. That's just ridiculous. No, the enemy is Satan. Jeff and Matt are the seduced victims of the enemy who need to be freed from his grasp. This is the kind of straw man arguments that people like Jeff make on a regular basis. On another show, Matt gives us these words of wisdom.
You don't have to keep making those sacrifices because this has been made for you, but the moral instructions don't change. And there's no indication in the New Testament that the laws pertaining to, for example, killing witches or homosexuality or slavery were changed at all.
This to me is mind-boggling, for I have heard Matt quoting scripture before, sounding like he was quite well versed when he was a Christian. And then to have him offer this up kind of makes me shake my head. Let's see, if I recall, in the Old Testament, adultery was punishable by stoning. So according to Matt, that should also continue in the New Testament dispensation. Well, we have an account of a woman who was caught in adultery in John chapter 8. And I quote, "And the scribes and the Pharisees brought unto him a woman taken in adultery. And when they had set her in the midst, that said unto him, Master, this woman was taken in adultery in the very act. Now Moses in the law commanded us that such should be stoned. But what sayest thou?" Unquote. And what was Christ's response? And I quote, "He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her." And they which heard it, being convicted by their own conscience, went out one by one, beginning at the eldest, even unto the last. And Jesus was left alone, and the woman standing in the midst. When Jesus had lifted up himself and saw that no one but the woman was there, he said unto her, "Woman, where are those thine accusers? Hath no man condemned thee?" She said, "No man, Lord." And Jesus said unto her, "Neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more." Unquote. So according to Matt, Christ would have approved of her being stoned. because Christ did not come to change the law. I find it hard to believe that Matt never read this verse in his entire life. So what does that have to say about Matt? To me, that means he is trying to be deceitful, and it should throw up a red flag concerning anything he has to say about the Bible. For Matt full well knows about this verse, and he knows that Christ also said that it is written, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth in the Old Testament, and that Jesus doesn't accept that either. Matt also knows that Jesus healed on the Sabbath and that he was accused by the Jews of breaking the Old Testament Sabbath law. And I'm pretty sure he is also familiar with the verse in Ephesians 2:15, which says, having abolished in his flesh the enmity, even the law of commandments contained in ordinances, unquote. And I'm sure Matt also knows of the verse in Colossians 2:14, blotting out the handwriting of ordinances that was against us, which was contrary to us, and took it out of the way, nailing it to his cross, unquote. It is a sad commentary on someone who has a show reaching thousands of people and knowingly spreading lies about the Bible like he does. And what's even sadder is that most fans of the Atheist Experience show, who might hear this portion of this commentary, will continue to be fans of the show, even though they could themselves just as easily check out the verses I used to refute Matt and see what I said about Matt's erroneous claims were true. And yet the fact that he was exposed as a deceiver wouldn't bother them one bit. Instead, they will continue to wallow in the mire of atheistic groupthink. The kind of atheistic groupthink that is promoted by people like Jeff and Matt on shows like the Atheist Experience. Thanks for listening, and until the next time, Lord willing, there is a next time, I pray that the short amount of time you have left on this planet will be filled with the knowledge of God, the peace of Christ, and looking forward to the joys of an eternal existence in the presence of the Creator of the universe.